Hello, San Diego Comic-Con! What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for coming out to Villains We Love, Why We Are Drawn to the Dark Side. I know why you're all here. There's a little villain in all of you. I'm looking around, I'm seeing you, I'm reporting you. But I'm here today with a bunch of legendary writers and creators in the business. My name's John Omohundro. I'm an actor, voice actor, best known for a show called Bravest Warriors and Tokyo Revengers. I'm going to start all the way down on the left. I'm going to ask you your name, tell them what you're all about, and tell them who your favorite villain is. Yeah, we're starting off with the hardest question. It only gets easier, I promise.
Kevin Rubio. I'm a writer-producer for animation, including some things like Green Lantern, like my friend Junior. Probably best known for the Star Wars short Troops, which premiered at San Diego Comic-Con in 1997. My favorite villain off the top, Ursula from
Nice.
Who doesn't love the crack?
Okay.
Nice.
I'm John Semper. I'm probably best known as the producer and head writer of Spider-Man the Animated Series. I hope to see some of you at our Spider-Man panel tomorrow, 30th anniversary. Villains, I would have to go with Green Goblin.
Yeah.
As a favorite.
Nice.
Hey, I'm Krieg Miller. I've worn two hats. I spent a decade as a publicity executive in motion pictures on Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and The Dark Crystal and Muppets Take Manhattan and all kinds of different movies. And for the last, we calculated out in the hall, unfortunately, 39 years. I've been writing animation, starting with the real Ghostbusters, Curious George, Beast Wars, and lots of stuff you've never seen because it's only played in China or Dubai or other countries not here. And I guess my favorite villain has to be Darth Vader.
My name is Jim Krieg, and I'm a writer and producer. And if you watch the Warner Brothers animation DTVs, if you'll buy them on Blu-ray, you can watch the extras. And I would say I'm best known for ruining the behind-the-scenes featurettes. And I would be the guy, the jackass who dresses up in costume for those. So you're watching it, you go, oh, I'm learning a lot. And oh, this guy's in costume. So that's why. Oh, and my favorite villain, if he is a villain, is Lex Luthor.
I'm Charlotte Fullerton McDuffie. I'm a largely an animation writer. You probably know me best from Ben 10, Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, Omniverse, and also from My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. And I got to invite everybody on Sunday at noon in room 28 to the Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics. Dwayne's my late husband, and we're giving away an award in his name. My favorite villain, other than Darth Vader, I'm going to go and say, from the original Muppet movie, Doc Hopper's French Fry Barber.
Awesome. I was going to say David from Prometheus. I know, everyone's like, that's a weird one. But I really like that. That's a different kind of villain for me. All right, with your choices with Ursula, why is Ursula your favorite? My question is, really, what makes that, the choice that you picked for villain, what makes that the one that you went to? We had two for Darth Vader.
Well, Darth Vader's kind of an easy one.
The real villains are on the stage.
And Darth Vader can't sing. But I mean, she's essentially the devil. You know, you're signing away your soul, on a contract you have no understanding of. And, you know, she's following basically the letter of the law. Now, give her credit, she does stick to the contract, but she'll do everything in her favor to make sure that the outcome favors her.
Yeah, just a studio lawyer.
Yeah, basically, she was Michael Eisner.
Okay, and then with you?
Well, why the Green Goblin? Okay, so I'll give you a little writing lesson. If you're writing a superhero character, it shouldn't really be about the powers. It should be about who they are as a human being. And if you are trying to get to the heart of who they are as a human being, I always like to tell my writers, what are they afraid of? Okay, what are they afraid of? That starts to get you into their head a little bit. Because a lot of these superhero characters come from a place of trauma. Even Superman being an orphan and being an alien and an illegal alien, as timely as it is. And so a good villain taps into what the hero fears the most and brings out all of that inside stuff in the hero, because that's what makes for good storytelling. In the case of the Green Goblin, for those of you who are old enough to remember, the Green Goblin was the father of Peter's best friend, and very quickly figured out who Spider-Man was. In fact, I believe he was the first villain to figure that out. And so this tapped into every conceivable way that Peter could be frightened and made vulnerable. And again, for storytelling purposes, that's what you want a good villain to do, is you want them to tap into the soft spot of what the hero is all about. So for me, it was the Green Goblin. I remember reading that saga when Stan and Jerry Conway and you know, all those wonderful early Marvel guys figured that out. It was such a momentous occasion, because up until then, Peter had just fought people with villainous powers, superpowers. But that was the first time that it really hit home. So there you go. That's your lesson 101 for tonight.
I have a question for you, Joe. Is he a villain because Norman Osborn has a split personality?
Yeah.
He's really a disease.
Yeah.
And I think Peter understands that, which is why he doesn't want to hurt him or punish him.
Well, that was the Lizard. The Lizard, for me, in fact, that was one of the reasons why I started with him. Because the dilemma that Peter faced with the Lizard was that he knew that deep down inside, Doc Connors was a good man. And that really hit home for Peter, because, you know, there was the monologue that I gave him in the pilot, where as he's fighting the villain, he's thinking, this is my friend. I don't know, you know, how am I going to win?
Right.
And that was a great story. I think that was another good villain for Peter. I think the Green Goblin, though, yeah, he was crazy, and a lot of good villains are, but he was also dangerous. You know, really dangerous, because he knew what he was doing, and he knew how he was going to ruin Peter's life. And I think that kind of malicious danger registers more with audiences.
I think there's also a difference. The Lizard is just a physical attack.
Yeah.
And the Green Goblin he's attacking his world, and his family and his friends are in danger. And the Lizard would never think to do that, because he's just a monster.
Remember that handshake that Norman Osborn gave to Peter when Norman knew that Peter was Spider-Man, and Peter knew that Norman knew.
I do remember that.
Yeah, there you go.
And I knew that he knew that he knew.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, echoing some of that, I used to teach a class for the Art Institute of California on animation writing, and one of the things I always told my students was, villains aren't just evil. They're not doing what they're doing because they woke up and said, what bad thing can I do today? They all have reasons for what they do. Even the Joker, his reason is that he's crazy. And that's kind of an easy excuse, but at least it's a reason for causing him to come up with these things. But all you know, in the real life, people who do evil do it for a reason, not just to be nasty. And so Darth Vader, who was my example, he has, you know, he is like, he's blackness, he's evil, he's mean, but he has an entire arc of how he came to be and what he becomes and how he is redeemed. The whole story of Darth Vader, which was actually originally supposed to go through episodes 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, and 9. The last trilogy was going to be the redemption of Darth Vader and the overthrowing of the Emperor. But it's all about that whole arc of a real person who grows through all these things. All the stuff about Luke and Leia and parentage came about somewhere in the middle of that. But from the beginning, he was a character with a story, not just ultimate evilness. And that's what makes him an interesting character.
There's one thing we have to be careful about when we talk about evil. Because you said the word, and you said it quite innocently, but you said he's blackness. And you have to be very careful with that. I find that kind of terminology works its way into a lot of popular fiction. The equating blackness with evil. You know, it's one of the things that as a story editor, I find that it becomes a kind of a shorthand for a lot of writers that, again, you have to be very careful about that. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was using the literary blackness. Also, he is all dressed in black. So, I mean, literally blackness.
It's interesting though, he was a great villain in the first Star Wars, in A New Hope, without knowing any of his backstory, without knowing anything. We immediately went, that's a great guy. He's just a guy with asthma, you know. And we're like, wow, that's the greatest villain ever. And then it wasn't for decades for us to get that whole Padme story to go, oh well, he's got a reason, you know.
Well, we did know that he was Luke's father.
Right.
Second movie.
Yes. But you didn't know, like, you didn't go, oh, well, if I had Luke as a son too, I'd become completely evil. Because he's such a whiner. Come on, you don't have to go to Toby's station. You went to the same place. Yeah, so for me, Lex Luthor, and is he a villain? So when I was a kid, if you're old like me, you saw the Superman movie and saw the late great Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, and he was so different. In the comics, he's just he's a cartoon. But in the beginning of Superman, the movie, when Christopher Reeve finds his headquarters and kicks the door in a huge explosion, and Gene Hackman says, "Come in, it's open." I'm in love. I love this guy because he has an evil plan, and sure, millions of people in California will die, but he's so charming. I mean, even in the new movie, I'm spoiler alert. There's a new movie. James Gunn goes through a lot of effort to explain his motivation, and I suppose he goes about it wrong, but you understand it, and I don't hate him. I find the fact that he has reasons for what he does, kind of compelling. And if there's a reason I dislike him, it's because now I'm older than Lex Luthor, which I find really weird.
Interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. Do you feel like with these characters that they show their human side, that we like them more?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a weird analogy, but it's a weird panel, and you all showed up anyway. So the person you relate to probably on Seinfeld most isn't. If you relate to Kramer, I don't understand you at all. But you can't relate to Jerry because he's blank. He's like a cipher. There's almost nothing there. You're George. Every single one of you is George because you're terrible. And when you watch George, you go, I guess I am that. I guess I would eat that out of the garbage, you know? And that's Lex Luthor too, except, you know, he would pay for a new one. But.
I wanted to jump in on something, expand on something that Craig was talking about. It's not just that the evil characters have motivation, it's that everybody, including villains, is the star of their own show. You know, like they're the hero as far as they're concerned, and what they're trying to accomplish is maybe more important, it is more important to them than what the hero is trying to accomplish. So to write them and see through their eyes, you can't just be evil. It has to be not just what this person, what motivates them, but what they want. And I'm going to change my Doc Hopper's French fried frog legs into, I was going to go Shadow the Hedgehog, because Sonic the Hedgehog, Shadow the Hedgehog, which one is cooler? And I wrote on Sonic Prime, but I'm going to say Drusilla from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Drusilla and Spike, because they're awesome.
And also, Doc Hopper's just a businessman.
Exactly,
He's just doing the thing that he needs to do.
Just doing his job.
I love it. I love it. So, with regards to villains, do you think that there's a certain medium in the arts that portrays them better? Live action, animation, comics, books, and why?
No, I don't think so. I think that all characters, those are just mediums. They're just delivery systems. You know, it's the difference between them. Like a vape and a cigarette. It's getting you the same poison. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can learn more about them in any serialized medium. You know, TV, you're going to hear 22 or 10 or 22 or 39, however many episodes, rather than 1 2-hour movie. So you may get more nuance out of them, but that doesn't make them any better. And depending on the writing and the performing, you'll learn all you need to learn to really understand them.
I think it's all cliche, but it starts with the writing.
Yeah.
And it really, whatever medium you use just enhances that. In some cases, you know, if you get something like a mini-series or a series, you get to expand upon it and explore it and find out more in depth about what this character is. But in some cases, you get, you know, page 1. And they walk through the door and they have to be fully formed.
There is a satisfaction of finding out later. I'm thinking Ben Linus in Lost, you know, when he was so terrifying, and then you finally get to his backstory, and you go, oh, he's got a point, you know. And the same with the governor in Walking Dead. You know, he's so evil and you hate him so much, and then they finally do that flashback episode, and you're like, he's the greatest guy in the world. The whole show should be about him, you know. It's interesting to peel back those layers in that way.
Yeah, sometimes the actor's performance is a revelation, and it elevates the kind of magnetism of the villain. I remember there was a show called Wise Guy, and it starred Ken Wall, who is not the most magnetic actor on the planet, but he was opposite a young upcoming actor named Kevin Spacey. And the villain, Kevin Spacey, was the villain, and his performance, you know, this is before he went bad, but his performance was spectacular to the point where you were tuning in every week to see Kevin Spacey. You weren't paying any attention to the lead. So sometimes the actor elevates the situation, and that happens.
Ooh. My next question is do you find the villains more captivating if we hate them? Or do we want to feel like they could have been us if we made worse decisions?
I think that if you out there and you're thinking to create your own story and you're looking for a villain, it can be someone you love to hate, someone you'd love to hang around with, or somebody you would love not to be in the same room with.
That's a good way to put it. I was going to say that villains get to do things that we don't get to do, we get to behave in ways that we don't get to behave, and there's something cathartic about that. Not that you want to be them, but you get to be them for the half hour, for the 2 hours.
That's probably why actors love to do it, because
Yeah,
they really,
sure.
if you're a bland good guy, there's only so many things you can do. You can be frustrated that your captain won't let you break the rules to get nabbed this guy. But if you're the villain, you know, any character can die at any time, and you get to kill them, and that's probably exciting.
Casting was being done for Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie. Dave Prowse came in, and he was, you know, being cast basically because George needed somebody really big. And they offered him either Chewbacca or Darth Vader. And Dave Prowse went, "Oh, I want the villain. The villain gets all the good lines, they get, you know, all the good screen time." And so he just immediately, there was no hesitation from him as to which character he wanted to be.
Oh, what a terrible mistake to never get your voice heard. At least Peter Mayhew, you can see his eyes, and he's doing, you know what I mean? There's something there.
Dave didn't know he was going, I mean, when he was hired, no one knew he was going to have his voice dubbed. And soon everybody knew, except Dave, that he was going to have his voice dubbed.
Well, you can see it, but you can see it, the clips on YouTube, and you go, well, that's probably the right decision.
But, you know, you can tell it's him in the suit. Because if you have other people, I mean, you can go outside on the floor right now and see somebody walking around in a Darth Vader outfit, and you just say, oh, it's somebody walking around in a Darth Vader outfit. But there's something about what he brought internally to that, you know, when he's walking around, oh, that's Darth Vader.
And he's 7 feet tall, or whatever.
I think movement is very powerful with a villain, for sure. Mm-hmm. When Darth Vader walks in, you know it. I love Darth Vader. I'm nerding out too, guys.
In Rogue One, when he shows up and lights up the lightsaber, it's like, ooh, I'm actually scared like I was when I was a little kid.
Okay. I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes from that entire franchise. My next question is, when you are writing a villain, do you worry about all their backstories first, or do you start with sort of their energy, their vibe, their movements, or is it more you broad stroke it first? You started it saying that you wanted it with fear. You think about the hero and the fear that they come.
Is that to me?
Yep.
Talking to me?
The thing that I try to do is look at the lead character, the protagonist first, because, you know, I think that if the villain overshadows the protagonist, then it's a weak story. I mean, you can still have a flamboyant, wonderful villain, but if the protagonist isn't strong and the villain is more colorful, then I think it's going to throw things out of balance. Perfect example is, you know, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is a fascinating character and a very charismatic character, and then all of a sudden, Conan Doyle introduces Moriarty. And Moriarty is fascinating and charismatic in his own way. And I think that's the kind of balance that you want to strike. You want to figure out what will provide a really strong counterbalance to the lead. Interestingly enough, I think that the best Sherlock Holmeses, people portraying Sherlock Holmes, are also really good at being villains. So Basil Rathbone was not much of a lead. I mean, he had done File of Ants before Sherlock Holmes, but he was really kind of a strong villain. He had been opposite Errol Flynn and Robin Hood and opposite Tyrone Power and Zorro. And Hollywood really thought of him as a villain, and then all of a sudden he's Sherlock Holmes because he brings a kind of a dynamic and slightly dark energy to this hero character. And so I think that strengthens, you know, when you then are designing a villain and you match the two in terms of intensity, then you've got a really strong story. I think if one overshadows the other, You know, if you've got a strong protagonist, but then your villain is kind of dishonest John, or if you've got a really colorful, you know, like in the case of Wise Guy, where you've got Kevin Spacey chewing up the scenery and Ken Wall not acting.
I need to point out that by powerful, we're not talking about
Not superpowers.
not powers, not abilities, because in fact, your villain kind of needs to be more powerful than your hero, because it needs to be a challenge for the hero. Yes, there's an awful ant, Squish, you know, it can't be too easy for the hero, but in terms of colorfulness, in terms of personality,
Well, again, it's a balance.
is what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's a balance. You have to keep things balanced between the two. Because the villain is powerful, but ultimately the villain is going to be defeated.
I like the idea of powering up that ant, though. You know, that's a good story, how powerful the ant. This is a super weird example that I'm going to share with you, but you're totally right about it. You have to keep that balance. And I wrote on a show called Clueless, which is based on a movie. There was a sitcom, and in the movie, Amber is Cher's arch nemesis, and in the show, she was so, the actress, Elisa Donovan, was so funny that you just wanted to give her every line because she could deliver the joke. And so halfway through, we just said, screw it, she's with them all the time. Because before we had to come up with a reason, you know, she was there. And it was just like, she's there because she can deliver a joke and we need her.
I just want to bounce off what John was talking about. John, are you Ken Wall's nemesis? Did he take your parking spot or something?
No, but you know, it was a perfect example of a star on the rise because of the situation in the show. You know, that show just sort of went along in a very flat way, and then all of a sudden Kevin Spacey came in. And you know, another example is Margot Martindale in Justified. She was the older woman who was poisoning people left and right, and she just came in and took over and became an overnight sensation, you know, because of that performance. So.
Or even if your star is electric, if it's Idris Elba in Luther, he's so strong, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know. And he took over just, you know, like in The Wire, but. And then you bring in that psycho girl. I wish what's that actress's name?
Ruth something.
Yeah. Oh my God. She's like, you're like, oh my gosh, you're so afraid. She's this big, you know. And Idris Elba is Darth Vader, and you're like, look out, you know.
The two of them clashing.
And you're scared all the time.
Yeah.
And just like Green Goblin, she stops by his ex-wife's, and you're like hiding behind the couch. And you're like, when is this gonna be over?
Question for the panelists: is Dexter a villain from Showtime's the serial killer?
Good question.
Yes, well, that was one of the whole premise of the show is he's a villain, but he's the hero, but he's a villain, and...
Do you know the Clint Eastwood movie High Plains Drifter? That's a little bit like that. It feels like, well, I've seen a million cowboy movies. I know what this is. It's this town where we find out the sheriff has been killed and no one did anything. And then the stranger rides into town, and he's been killed by the desperados who the town, you know, didn't turn their back on, and now they can savage the town in any way they want. And the guy comes in, Clint Eastwood, and he agrees to kill these desperados, but he destroys the town. He tortures them. The whole movie, it's not like, this guy's great, you know. It's a little, you walk away going, oh, I guess everyone is terrible. So,
you know, I really hated that movie because of that. Because there was no moral center in the
Right.
film. It was just wanton destruction. In the end, he ends up grabbing a whole bunch of paint and painting the town red.
he literally paints the town red and names it hell. I mean, it's like, it's not subtle.
Yeah. I had a big problem with that film. I had invited a bunch of friends to see it because I had been a huge fan of Sergio Leone and the whole Man with No Name movies, and I thought this was going to be like that. But in fact, it was one of the first movies that made me realize that I didn't like Clint Eastwood as a director.
Well, the whole movie sort of is a reaction to that, and that those 70s westerns all question, wait, are these cowboys good? And why are they killing Indians? And you know what I mean? It's probably exactly what the superhero genre is going to go through, which is there's a standard format for them, and at a certain point, people start to get sick of it. So it's like, well, let's flip this on its head and see what it's really about.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, Leone did an interesting thing. This gets really esoteric, and I'll get out of it. But he did an interesting thing because he took three essentially bad guys and created this wonderful sort. I'm talking about good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, sure.
And created this wonderful balance between the three of them, where you're never quite sure where the moral center is, but it's there somewhere. And it's there's humor, and that's a wonderful movie.
They're all of their morality is super questionable as
Yeah.
well, and I guess that's the next.
But
that
that's
was just
that's
the
also a common thing within the 70s entertainment world.
The anti-hero.
The anti-hero, no resolution. Every movie ends with they all got run over by a truck. That kind of thing. The Easy Rider ending.
Even Holy Grail ends that way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want it all feels like kind of French filmmaker kaiju cinema. Oh, you wanted to know what happened.
I know we don't have AARP cards in our wall right now, but any villains from this century?
No, I stopped. They invented something they called cable TV, and I'm like, I'm not getting involved.
I'm going to change my favorite villain yet again. I can't believe I didn't think of this because I'm going to stick to this. The Wicked Witch of the West. She freaking terrified me as a little girl. Talk about hiding behind the couch. Terrifies me as an adult. But then now to have Wicked show her backstory, and she's not so bad after all. I'm not afraid of her anymore in the old movie. Not just because I'm an adult, but because you're watching her. Now it's kind of a soft backstory, but she's just misunderstood. And I'm not going to say anything about the part 2 in case you guys haven't seen Wicked in the theaters.
No spoilers, please.
I won't but just the idea that we now have met her younger and follow along with her motivations and things like that. I liked her much more when she was cackling evil and probably, the best villain. I'd say she's more than you guys. Pale in comparison to the Wicked Witch of the West.
I just saw a thing. It was a clip from a TV Guide from years ago that had, a TV Guide was a magazine that used to come 1,000 years ago.
Last century.
And it said that a Wizard of Oz.
Magazines.
It said Wizard of Oz, and had the time and said a girl comes from Kansas and kills the first person she finds in the new land.
Well, it's also interesting with the Wicked Witch. When we did Return to Oz, one of the things that happened, people were remembering with the Wizard of Oz and comparing it to a lot of people were disappointed in Return to Oz because it wasn't like the Wizard of Oz. And Richard Schickel, who was a noted film critic of the period, this is the mid-'80s, said, he didn't like the movie because it was scary. Mombi, the witch in Return to Oz, was terrifying, was scary, whereas, according to Richard Schickel, the Wicked Witch of the West was a comical stereotype of a witch. It's like, what movie did you see? She was certainly not comical, and she was so overpowering. Margaret Hamilton's performance became the stereotype of what witches are. So it's like the point. It depends on where you're coming from on it. To think of someone who says, "Oh, that wasn't a scary witch." They sure didn't watch it, when they were young.
Yeah, Schickel gave Dino De Laurentiis' King Kong a great review. So
It's questionable.
Which King Kong?
Caitlin,
The Dino De Laurentiis one.
The Wicked Witch of the West is inside the crystal ball and telling, Dorothy's counting down to when she's going to die and stuff. And then the witch shows up in the crystal ball and makes fun of her. I'm like, that's evil. Don't know she's going to kill her. She's going to make fun of her for being scared.
Oh no.
I know.
Why do you guys think that audiences connect to the villain so much? Why are they drawn?
Well, that's the hope. If you don't have one that they connect to, then you don't have much of a story. Because then there's no conflict and there's no jeopardy and all those elements that make your hero's journey worth experiencing with them.
Okay, but like, what with like the humanity side of it, right? We get the humanity from some villains. With the Wicked Witch of the West, we didn't know her motivations originally.
She just wanted to shoot.
Well, her sister was killed.
Her sister was
Yeah.
killed.
Dorothy killed her sister,
And
supposedly.
Sid stole her shoe.
It's a revenge story.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
She's essentially it's Death Wish, right? I mean, it's
Well, it's funny that we keep
Liam
bringing up.
Neeson could play.
And then you find out in Wicked that she couldn't walk, and then that just makes it even
Yeah.
more tragic.
Throw that away. That we-
Oh, and yeah, nobody's seen Wicked's been out for a year.
No, but this is part two. Part two.
I'm not saying anything about her. You're
That's-
It's interesting that this conversation. It's interesting that this conversation has gone back to a lot of sort of archetypes from the past, because a lot of what's being done today is just sort of rehashing a lot of what really was done many years ago, and we're just sort of seeing a new version of it. Zack Snyder did that space thing on my comment has been rated at 15. Zack Snyder did that space thing that was, for Netflix, that was supposed to sort of, be a big deal. And I'm watching it, and it was Seven Samurai, and it's like everything new is based on something old, it seems. Now we're talking about Wicked and the Wizard of Oz, we're talking about the Wizard of Oz and Wicked. So it's like, just.
Is there a new direction that you think that villain should explore?
And for those of you that are here because you're interested in how to create a villain, new stuff comes from the person writing it. Because everybody out there has a story that we haven't heard. Everybody here has a moral compass. And it may not jive with other people's, but if you sway one way or the other, you're, really, really evil, or you're, really, really pious. And, you kind of want to use that when you're creating something. And you can bring something new to the table. So yeah, the formulas go back to Aristotle, but there's always something new that can be added to the table. James Gunn didn't necessarily do anything new with Superman, except that he just made it available to a broader audience.
So he didn't screw it up.
Yeah.
I think that to John's point, movie making has become, and television, so expensive that it's a huge gamble to make a movie, so they want to make sure it will make money by making sure everyone will be happy with this movie, and that's a sure way to make a movie that mostly people are not going to be that interested in. And I think as technology changes and your phone gets better and you're all able to make movies, I think that it's going to be a lot more interesting. I think that our whole industry is on the cliff of a precipice that many of you out there will be able to take advantage of and make stories that we go, oh my gosh, that is astonishing. I've never seen that before. But we'll all have fallen off that cliff. So.
Is there anything that you guys would like to tell the audience in regards to creating villains for your respective medium that you think that they should know? maybe in a way that might help. For me, I am a dungeon master, and I have to introduce villains all the time at different levels. And if I have, how much villain can I give them before it becomes too much in a story? That's a question.
I don't think there's such a thing as too much villainy.
That's what I say.
No, I think it's supposed to challenge the hero, so it depends on how much of a challenge the hero needs. And I think if you've got a powerful hero, and by powerful I mean even somebody who's very sure of themselves, that's a type of power, you have to have an equal or more powerful villain.
I love it.
Yes, I think that Lucy has to be clever enough to make Charlie Brown think that she's going to hold that football still. And when he says, no, you're going to move it, she says, look, I've changed. This is not what your expectations are one thing, and maybe that's deserved, but I am going to hold this football absolutely still. And that's villainy. And that's very hard. But I guess my advice to you is when you're writing, the hero is you, the villain is also you, and the sidekick is you, and the person bringing up the Batmobile is also you. So be all of those characters and write them how you feel that in those shoes you'd be, and then I will look forward to watching it.
Your villain doesn't even have to be a person. It can be inanimate. Sometimes it's nature.
Right.
You're a guy in a boat, battling a storm.
Yep, old man in the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to protagonist and antagonist. It isn't necessarily someone doing evil. You're writing a sports story. The other team is the villain. Even if they don't cheat, they are the antagonist. So you have to overcome them. To make the story interesting, the teams have to be either really evenly matched or the other side is much better than your team, and your team has to come up with ways to, to equal them, to beat them. I mean, it's the same dichotomy, but even without
It's a villainous tone.
even without
That is quite alarm.
even without evil. So it's the same thing. Nature, whether it's Jaws is a force of nature.
I'm going to make a weird recommendation for a movie. Remember during the pandemic and you'd watch anything that was streaming because you were just bored out of your minds? I spent a lot of time like that. And I saw this movie, I think it was made in Malta, and it was called The Boat. And this guy climbed, he's like a fisherman in a little runabout. And he finds this nice sailboat. And that's when I started watching. Of course, I'm going to watch that. And he climbs on the boat. And the villain in the boat in the movie is the boat. And the rest of the movie is spent with the boat trying to kill him. And you have at the end of the movie, you don't go, well, now I understand why the boat was trying to kill him. But it takes a different what is a villain? Sometimes it's the environment.
It's like Hitchcock and the birds. Hitchcock made a movie in which the birds were the villain, and he never explained why. And it's one of the greatest cinema classics ever made. You know what? The problem with these kinds of panels is that it implies sometimes that there's a formula. And the problem with Hollywood is that filmmaking has become too formulaic. And so what I'd like for you all to do is to take away from this that you should try to come up with a new way of looking at things, a new way of telling a story. I'm so tired of knowing the entire plot after watching the trailer. They give you the beginning, the middle, and the end because they don't want you to worry,
I have to be the villain and play devil's advocate here. At no time in history have there been more original movies being put out every year. However, nobody goes to see that.
Well, no, I don't think that's true. Because I think that during the 70s, when people, first of all, there was a lot of money flowing around, and there was a lot of independent filmmaking, and people were making really strange and interesting movies. And I don't see a lot of that happening now. I do see some of it happening in television. Like, you look at Severance and you go, okay, well, I haven't seen this before. Or I don't know if any of you ever saw Fleabag. I mean,
may I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? The alarm is being investigated by Vegetation Security. Please remain calm and await further instructions. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? The alarm is being investigated by Vegetation Security.
Some time for the villain.
And we found our villain.
Pioneers movie is the building.
As we wrap up, do you guys want to go down the line and just tell everybody where they can find you, where they can see more of what you are about, and promote yourself in the last little moment that we have here?
What I'm about?
Oh yeah.
Take that or take
Okay, let's. Where can they find you? Via social media?
I'm just on Instagram. The Kevin Rubio. I'm very boring.
Yeah!
I'm John Semper. You can find me. I'm on Facebook every day because I'm old. And I'm also on Instagram and a couple of others. And we're doing a panel tomorrow night, Spider-Man the Animated Series 30th Anniversary Celebration. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to be much more awake. I hope that you will join us. And I do a whole bunch of things. I've got a new show coming on called Weather Hunters. I'm the exec producer and the head writer. It was created by Al Roker. That's going to be on PBS, so that's for your kids. And I did a really wonderful movie for Jim called Green Lantern, Beware My Power.
It is really good.
And I'm still happy about it. It came out, we had a big screening a couple of years ago, but you can find that on Amazon. And so I'm still doing stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm old like John, so I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Blue Sky, though not as often. Right now I'm adapting a Japanese steampunk novel into a screenplay for a Japanese studio. And I have a booth downstairs in 1400 where I've got my 2 books out on Star Wars and other things that I've worked on, and I'm always around.
All right, this is the scariest moment of the con for me because I wasn't sure if I'm going to announce something. I've been working on a YouTube show / podcast. My son is the producer, and so I'm going to announce it now. So it's very exciting. And it is called. It's going to be called, or it is called. We've got a couple in a can, and it's called Jim Krieg's TV Attic, and it's shot in my attic. And people come over and we talk about television. And my wife asked me, well, what do you want to say? Yeah, of course we'll come over. So she said, what's the idea of the show? And I said, well, it's people who make TV talking about TV for people who watch TV. So that's the show. And if I don't get it on the air in the next month or two, you can find me on social media and say, where's that show, Jim?
Well, you can find me on Facebook under the Charlotte Fullerton page. In terms of websites, I want to promote my late husband's page. It's about to go live, DwayneMcDuffie.com. Putting up his scripts, his outlines, premises from different shows, Justice League Unlimited, Ben 10, also not screenplays, but scripts for comic books. If people need a sample of what a comic book script looks like, they're going to be on there, and all kinds of stuff. So I want to promote that.
Nice! Again, I'm John Omohundro. It's just at John Omohundro. You guys can see me on Moonrise on Netflix. And thank you guys so much for coming out. And here's talking about villains we love. Happy 2025 San Diego from
I
Comic
want to
Con.
take a selfie with
Oh, we got a selfie.
Hold on, I want to take a selfie with you.
Everybody throw a villain sign. Nice. Thank you guys.